to Bill and Gerry.
Thank you, Ed. This is Gerry Villamil with Promethean Analytics. If possible, can someone give me the ability to share?
You should have the ability if you try just down in the bottom corner there. I just stopped sharing the screen.
I'm set. Thank you so much. So let me go through and set everything up. Perfect. With me is Bill Reddy with Promethean Analytics. He's the Senior Director. I'm Gerry Villamil, and I've been in the space for approximately 25 years. I'm showing my age, unfortunately. But Promethean Analytics is a boutique consultancy that was established approximately 6 years ago, just under 6 years ago. And we primarily do EPM and BI solution consulting. We only partner with Oracle and Oracle's partners. So we've been asked to partner with other firms and other companies in regards to their technologies, and we just haven't found a technology that that comes close to matching the power and the flexibility that Oracle EPM brings to the table. So we're composed of experienced business and technology professionals. Our professionals have been in the space for a minimum of 18 years, at least from the senior director staff and above. Obviously, some of our consultants have slightly less experience, but most of our consultants have a minimum of 6 to 8 years or above. We deploy primarily around Oracle, the Oracle EPM cloud solutions. So anything that has to do with planning, EPBCS, FCCS, narrative, etc. So we stick to that just because it provides us a lot of flexibility that that Oracle has placed within those cloud offerings that you no longer get with on-premise. Not to say that we do not dismiss on-premise. We do some consulting on the on-premise side due to the fact that our experience is rooted in Essbase and on-premise planning. But the solutions that we primarily target, especially around our accelerators, is around Oracle Cloud products. Okay. So as you can see from my experience, I actually started with Arbor Software in 1993 and stayed with the company as it transitioned into Hyperion Solutions. And after Hyperion, after Arbor and Hyperion merged and then became a single company, I left a year later to start up a consultancy firm with Bill. And then that firm was actually and ultimately sold to the Hackett Group many years ago. And then I decided to actually go back to Oracle, and I spent approximately 6 years at Oracle, kind of retooling around cloud. I was part of a team that helped to kind of not shape, because obviously that's handled within the development team, but we were tasked to test it. We were tasked to go in and help to migrate some of our customers over to the cloud environment and help sell it, obviously. And then approximately 6 years ago, I decided that it was time for us to actually move forward and set up another consultancy, and we created Promethean Analytics. So with that said, let's actually move into our presentation. So obviously the main theme here is how can we model against such an unstable kind of fluctuating economy? How is it impacting our business? How can we go through and model specific scenarios to help determine, are we going to be impacted near term, midterm, long term, and how can we go through and model that within our current solutions? Now, we're taking a slightly different slant in this particular presentation because obviously you've had 3 or 4 presentations that were amazing and talking about the impact to our business, the impact to the economy, how can we leverage the individual solutions that Oracle provides to help model our business. What we're going to do in this presentation is actually focus our attention on one of those solutions, and that's Oracle EPBCS. And specifically within Oracle's planning and budgeting tool, how can we slightly modify or take advantage of some of the features that are within EPBCS to help model our business faster and more in real time. So what we're trying to understand is, based upon these specific models, how are our sales fluctuating? You know, how, if our, based upon our inventories, due to the fact that our inventories may be ballooning or depleting, how is that going to affect our bottom line as well? And then obviously payroll, you know, with the way that we're having massive layoffs or furloughs, how is that impacting our bottom line? How many do we need to, if we can keep our team intact, how is it going to affect our overall profitability, you know, 2 weeks from now, 1 month from now, 1 month from now, or 3 months from now? Okay. So with that said, what we want to do is kind of look at one of the key features that were introduced into EPBCS actually around 2 years ago, how time flies, and that's Groovy. And Groovy has been one of the biggest, most impactful changes that has entered the cloud offerings since ASO 7, 8, 10, who knows how many years back, minimum of 10, 12 years back, when aggregate storage was introduced and we could actually load significant amounts of data within the system. And all of a sudden our models went from small 7-dimensional models to very large enterprise systems that allow us to go in and report and manipulate and manage our multidimensional databases. So as you can see here, one of the things that, and you're going to see a different viewpoint of this, is, so I kind of took some of the vibe from the previous presentations to incorporate into this as we were kind of going through ad hoc manipulation of the slide material. So as you can see here, we have the ability within EPBCS to create what-if models. We can do those what-if models via sandboxing if you've set up your environment at the time that the application was set up to take advantage of sandboxes, or you can create custom what-if models that you can almost say custom sandboxes that give you the ability to do modeling after the application has been created, and actually quite quickly. It doesn't take a rocket engineer to actually implement that within your existing system. Okay. So what is Groovy? I mean, we've talked about it. You've seen a lot of most probably you've seen a lot of material talking to it at Kscope and at Oracle Open World and some of the other conferences. But basically, Groovy is the next generation of business rule writing. It's not replacing the existing business rules that everybody's come to either love or hate, but it's given us the ability to extend the capabilities and the flexibility around those business rules. And it allows us to basically add a massive amount of flexibility into the business rule, and also allows us to help basically speed up the performance of our system to the point where we can actually get real-time updates, real-time aggregations at the time that we save a particular set of data within the model. Okay, so basically, Groovy is just a framework that is like a wrapper around Java, allows us to help to extend our business rules. Some people say, does it make our business rules faster and better? And the answer is yes and no. I mean, depending on the type of rule you're running, if all you're doing is taking a basic business rule, placing it within a Groovy wrapper, but really not leveraging the changes that it's capturing within a form, then all it's really doing is just running a business rule. And technically, it actually may run it a wee bit longer, just for the fact that it has to literally run it within the Groovy editor, identify what changes that what business rule is going to run, and then run it. So it adds a little bit of overhead. Now that overhead itself is mitigated if you leverage some of the additional enhancement features that come with Groovy. The ability to go in and identify edited cells within a form via Smart View or a web form, and then only calculate or only push those specific cells within the database. Okay, so here's an example of a Groovy rule. So you can see here that Groovy leverages the existing calculation manager within EPBCS. You'll see that it has you have the option of flipping between CalScript and Groovy. And then by changing that, it automatically starts to validate using Groovy rules versus typical business rule logic. Now, the one caveat on this is that if you are one of the legacy Oracle EPM clients that only have PBCS, which are very few and far between now, but for those that just have PBCS, you'll notice that Groovy is not available to you. You actually need to have a minimum of one framework to be able to leverage Groovy within all your plan types. So for those that are Oracle like PBCS +1, you have the ability to use Groovy. If you're a NetSuite customer that has a specific NetSuite SKU, you'll have the ability to leverage Groovy because you have a minimum of one framework. Okay. For all other customers that have already migrated over to EPBCS, then literally all you have to do is configure one framework. You don't even need to use it. You just need to configure one framework, and then Groovy is exposed. Okay. So from a Groovy perspective, as I mentioned, Groovy is just a framework for Java. It's basically a wrapper. It's object-oriented, so there's a bunch of classes, a bunch of functions that are available to you. If you are a programmer or have programming experience, then Groovy should actually come quite easily to you because it uses the same type of approach when it comes to code writing that you would implement if you've ever done any form of Visual Basic or any form of C or any form of Java coding. It's all in the same vein. Now, do you need to be a programmer to be able to leverage Groovy? The answer is absolutely not. As you're going to see within our presentation, within literally 5 minutes, you can actually take an existing business rule and make it a Groovy rule. So it doesn't take a rocket engineer to be able to create a Groovy rule. But if you have additional programming background, then you can really make Groovy sing. You can do a lot of things within Groovy that were unavailable to you 2 years ago. Okay, so some creative use cases for Groovy is being able to do real-time data validation within your forms. Based upon a validation rule, identify either not launch a business rule if it does not validate correctly, or launch a different type of business rule. Be able to perform calculations on unedited cells. I apologize. Now this is if there's one massive carrot here when it comes to Groovy, that is it. So it's literally every one of our accelerators that we deliver through Promethean leverages Groovy. Okay, and it allows us to take rules that normally would take 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and be able to deliver those in mere seconds, and not only run that business rule, but also, if necessary, push it to a secondary plan type of reporting. Okay. Groovy also allows us to manipulate physical members within the model. So on runtime, I can literally move members from one parent to another parent, or be able to identify specific attributes of a member and leverage those attributes for other purposes within my calculation or within my model. Okay. So best use case, obviously, is to dramatically improve performance within a business rule. And we're going to show that. We're going to actually show you an example of how a particular Groovy will trap specific changes within a form. Now I'm going to show that to you via the slide material, and then show it to you as a demo as well. So obviously we're leveraging a demo model. The demo model doesn't have a massive amount of data, but it highlights the fact that we're able to trap specific changes within a form, and it gets logged, and you can actually see what specific members were affected during that business rule. Okay, so before I actually move into the first Groovy rule, let's prep the runway. Let's give you an example of what we're actually going to be demonstrating, and what's within that particular form that we'll be leveraging. So for Groovy to really be beneficial from a calculation perspective, you want most of your models will be fairly large in size, and in this new landscape of EPBCS customers, we're working with customers that have a minimum of 8, 9, 10 dimensions in their model. A lot of their hierarchies are extremely deep in size, or have large amounts of members. They may have multiple dimensions that are fairly large in size, or have multiple dimensions that may exist within a form that are going down rows or going across columns. So large amounts of data within their forms, and their calculations or business rules are now no longer short in duration, but they're time consuming. So would be a perfect use case for Groovy if you have, again, large number of dimensions, large deep hierarchies, or multiple row or column dimensions within your forms. So here's an example, again, using the same kind of theme that has progressed throughout the day, where we're dealing with quick, delayed and prolonged recovery. So here's individual scenarios or versions that we're modeling against our basic data. We have multiple dimensions here that are going down, where we're looking at multiple product lines or product SKUs, multiple markets. We tend to work a lot also within the merchandise space, where we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of SKUs. And when you're dealing with models like in that size, you need to be able to only manipulate or touch SKUs that have been changed, instead of having to calculate all your SKUs or all your markets all in one time. Okay. So with that runway established, we have an idea of this particular form that we're using. We have a model that is approximately 7 or 8 dimensions in this particular model, but it's a good use case for us to at least understand what we're doing within a Groovy rule. Okay. So as I mentioned, you do not need to be a rocket engineer to create your first Groovy rule. All you need to be able to do is understand 3 specific lines. Understand that you have to add 3 unique lines within a basic business rule, and now you change it from the old standard business rule logic to an actual Groovy rule. So here's an example of a business rule where all we're doing, you'll see here that we're fixing on a specific member. This particular model actually has sandboxes enabled. That's why you see the space data here. We have variables here in the second fix statement that identifies within the form what scenario I'm calculating, what version, what entity, what currency, and also, what periods we're going to be manipulating or calculating within this particular business rule. You'll see here that we're fixing on all the level 0 members of market, meaning, if I have 20 or 30 markets that I sell into, I'm basically saying I'm going to run this calculation against all 30 markets and against all our products within that we sell or that we're planning against. And this is a very simple formula. I'm trying to make sure that we don't overwhelm you with business logic. So all we're doing here is just calculating revenue. Very simple. We take volumes, multiply by average selling price, and we're calculating product revenue for all our markets, all our products for a particular scenario, version, entity, which could be, you know, a sales unit. If I'm multinational, what currency I'm doing this in, okay? Now, all I have to do is take this particular business rule and make a few changes to it, very minor changes. So here's that exact same business rule where now it's been turned from basic business rule logic to a Groovy rule. So you'll notice here that we've added in 2 small sections here. Basically, it encapsulates that business rule within Groovy. So therefore it says, okay, within this calc script that's enclosed within these quotation marks and ends with these particular quotation marks, this is the business rule that we're going to run. The exact same business rule, no changes to it. All we're doing is incorporating this string that's called calc script with the 3 quotes, and then enclosing it with 3 quotes. This last line is basically a return, and that basically says run the rule. Submit it into PBCS and run the rule. Now this one line here, this print line, all it does is allows it generates a textual version of that script and puts it into a log. So when you run that script via a save operation or through a business rule and you go to the jobs, you can actually see that what script was run and the exact parameters in that script. So that's very simple. I mean, within 5 minutes, you can literally take any one of your business rules and convert it to Groovy. Now, is this really doing anything? No, not really. I mean, it's running the business rule, but you really haven't leveraged Groovy to its full potential. All this does is just take an existing business rule and Groovyize it, but it's not leveraging any of the benefits that would come with Groovy. So let's actually take this to the next level. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a form and we're going to change a value within that form, and then we're going to have Groovy capture those changes and then pass it into a business rule. Now, for that to occur, we need to actually go through and then take this form that I showed you earlier, and you'll see here that we've made 2 changes into this, and we'll do the exact same thing. We'll actually demonstrate this for you, but I thought it's best where we actually visualize this within a PowerPoint slide. So you'll see here that I've made 2 changes for 1 month for 1 market for 2 products. Okay, so GC1 and GC1X. Now, for a Groovy rule to be able to understand what has changed within the form, we have to add within a Groovy rule these 15 lines of code. And so it looks a little daunting, but it really isn't. All it's saying is, hey, you know, let's capture the grid within the form. So whatever form we attach this business rule to, on save, it's literally going to create a little imprint in memory of that form and then identify the cells that have changed within that form. So how does it do that? So basically it goes through and we're actually cycling through 2 dimensions. So we're going to capture the changes for our markets and we're going to capture the changes for our products. And it runs through what we refer to as a iterator. It literally iterates through every cell within the grid and then captures the cells that are associated to market and captures the cells that are associated to product. So it says, okay, hey, US market has changed. That's the only market that has changed. And then for the products, I'm going to capture within that data cell iterator 2 products, GC1 and GC1X. Now, it just captures them as 2 textual lines for each product and for each market. But for it to actually work appropriately within a business rule, we need to enclose those within quotes. So that's all this is doing down here, saying, hey, you know, for every product that is changed, let's create a list, and then in that list, it's enclosed in quotes, and then separated with a comma. So therefore, it lays itself down appropriately within a business rule. So all I do is I take this code, I add it to that rule that we had created earlier, and then I run it. So when I run it on save, it literally runs this rule, and you'll see that it generates a log message. You'll see that within that fix statement, instead of it actually fixing on all the products within my model, it only ran this for these two particular product lines and for this one market, okay? So it took a script that potentially could run 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, longer, and then ran this in literally 1 second. So it's extremely powerful. Here we have the ability within literally an hour, we could actually take one of your existing business rules, or you can take one of those business rules, take this exact logic, drop it in, and then be able to run it, and you'll be able to leverage the power of Groovy. Now, these are just individual components that I added into our existing business rule. Let's actually take a look at that business rule that we start off with. So here was the original business rule. So this business rule that we generated originally, it was just a basic business rule. Then we added the logic for Groovyizing it. So I added my string for cash up here. I enclosed it. I closed it with my quotes. And then here's my return calc script. Now, to be able to leverage the power of Groovy, we took this one business rule and we just added this one little section above, okay? So we just added this section, and then the exact same business rule, you'll see here that it made 2 modifications, okay? So here we have our markets and our products, and now we've replaced that with the string S markets and the string S products. Okay. You'll also see that that there's an additional variable here for versions, and the reason for that is that we're going to use this in a different form that has multiple versions that going across, and it's going to understand which versions I've manipulated or changed and only calculate those. So if I have 8 or 10 versions within a particular form, it's only going to calculate the versions that I manipulated for the products and markets that I manipulated. So very simply, there's lots of code out on the World Wide Web, plenty of fantastic resources and blogs, a number of amazing developers that have been in the EPBCS or the planning space for many years that have created some great examples of this. I'll go through and send out some references to those particular blogs, so therefore you have that available to you in the future. Okay. So again, we've gone through, we've taken our existing business rule, changed it, enhanced it to now leverage that business rule for only cells that have been edited within the model. Okay. So now, where do we go from here? So within a Groovy form, what Groovy allows us to do is be able to speed up the calculation performance, obviously, within models, but it can do so much more. So where we really want to end up is I want to be able to run a rule within my model and be able to immediately see the impact of that change at the highest level of our application. So I made a change for one department. How does it affect my overall company from an income statement, balance sheet, cash flow perspective? Now, if I go through and change a particular ASP across a number of products, how's my overall revenue get impacted, not only for that particular market, but all my markets combined. So we need to be able to have almost real-time consolidation within our application. And Groovy provides that to us. But we need to kind of marry that with a couple of other things. So let's actually get into that. So Groovy, as I mentioned, is just the beginning. It gives us the ability to identify and only manipulate manipulate the data that has changed within forms. But for us to really take advantage of that, we need to also have real-time aggregation. So real-time aggregation can be leveraged using one of the following options here. Now, for those that are aware, BSO hybrid has been within Essbase and within technically on-premise planning for many years. Now, on the on-premise planning side, it wasn't supported by Oracle per se, but that didn't hold back any one of the consulting firms actually going through and implementing planning. So we leveraged BSO hybrid for many years. But within the cloud environment, specifically EPBCS, it's only been around for approximately 6 months, if that. So it's a huge boon for our customers, especially our EPBCS customers. It's very easy to go in and implement. You can convert your applications into EPBCS. Now, for some of our, for people that are starting with normal EPBCS models, there's the very strong possibility that you have to recreate the model after you've migrated your application to BSO hybrid. So that's obviously a little heartburn for some of our customers. It's not difficult. Actually, within a week, and that's including testing, you can get your model migrated to EPBCS in short order. But the additional option, or the secondary approach, is to actually leverage Smart Push and ASO reporting plan types. With Smart Push and ASO, you don't have to actually convert your application to BSO hybrid. You can leverage out-of-the-box functionality using Smart Push to push to a reporting cube. At times, there are pros and cons to actually using each one of these. Okay, the pro for BSO hybrid is, you have one model. You don't have to do a push, right? So you can leverage everything within that existing model. You can still use your Groovy rules within the BSO hybrid model, and it automatically aggregates up all within one plan type. So that is a massive pro. The con is that at times you have a lot of accounts, system members that are leveraged within your planning model that you don't want to expose to your planners. So leveraging a reporting cube at times actually is beneficial, because you can actually control exactly what the users see within their reporting cube, and it doesn't create any confusion. Obviously you can lock it down with security, but there are benefits to actually either using just a BSO hybrid option with Groovy, just a Smart Push and ASO reporting cube and Groovy, or a combination of the two. So just don't bind your hands by isolating to one cube or one approach or the other. You have the ability to leverage a combination of both. Okay. So as I mentioned, obviously the ultimate solution here is not only to leverage Groovy to run your calculations faster, but also to leverage a combination of both Groovy and real-time aggregation to deliver your reporting in real time to your planners. So how do we do that? So within Groovy, so there's two options. One, you have to create a Smart Push data map. So you'll establish a link from your planning model. Let's say here's an example where we have a very detailed revenue model and we're pushing it to our financial statements framework. So we've created that data map. It's going from our revenue model over to our financial statements data map. Then what we do is we open up the form. So whatever form that you're going to want to have data that's changed within that form and automatically pushed into your reporting cube, be it your financial statements cube or a custom reporting cube, you're going to attach that data map via the Smart Push tab. You're going to attach it to that particular form. And you have two options here. You can either run it on save So it's literally on save. You're gonna run it within the model, and you're also gonna see here that there's this database suppression checkbox here. It's not checked here just for this particular screenshot, but I highly recommend that you actually do check it. It's going to speed up your performance significantly. Okay. Now this runs as soon as you click on save. So basically, what it'll do is it'll run any business rules that are within your form, and then after the business rules have run, it'll literally push the data from your planning cube or your detailed revenue cube directly into the reporting cube. So it's instantaneous. So literally within seconds, you can go right to your report and you immediately have at hand all the reporting needs available to you to measure your individual models that you're modeling for this unstable period that we're currently in, and be able to actually deliver answers based upon the questions that are being asked of you. Now, at times, you don't have the ability, you need to do something potentially in between running the rule and running or submitting the data over to the reporting queue. Maybe you have to run a number of rules, or you may need to push multiple data sets to different plan types. So Oracle has actually provided you the flexibility to run that push via a business rule. So within a Groovy rule, you can actually manipulate or push using a Groovy rule as well. So you don't actually have to run after save. You can run some operations and then run a Groovy rule that does the exact same smart push. So as you can see here, here's an example of a Groovy rule where it's leveraging, again, the specific product lists and markets that we've changed within the form. It's capturing those and actually passing it into a smart push function that only pushes for those particular combinations. So you have the ultimate flexibility. You can launch it via a business rule using Groovy. You can use the form itself using smart push and run it on save. But with the combination of both business rules and smart push, now you have a system that gives you real-time modeling and consolidation so that you can answer the questions that are being provided to you in regards to where are we going to be, 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 3 months from now. Okay, so as I promised, I'm going to actually go through and give you a quick demonstration of how this works. So I'm just going over to my browser. Here's an example of a form that we have multiple what-if scenarios. I have the ability within this particular form to create additional what-if scenarios. So I can literally have, 3, 6, 9 different versions of my working model and be able to very quickly measure those and determine which is the one that most closely resembles where we're going to be in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or 3 months from now. I'm going to go through here. I'm going to make a quick change to, let's say, a quick recovery. And I'm going to change, this particular product here. I'm going to change this particular product there. I'm going to change, I'm going to lower this prognosis here. And I can go through and possibly say, hey, maybe I'm going to reduce the cost down for our individual products. So therefore, may help to kind of spur growth from a sales perspective. I'm going to click on save here. And this is actually doing two things. It's actually running the business rule using Groovy, and it's pushing this directly to our reporting cube. So we can immediately see the impact in our income statement and in our cash flow. If we're dealing with our balance sheet, how our balance sheet gets impacted as well based upon specific changes that I may have incorporated from some of our drivers. So let's see what this did. So here I went through. I'm just going to close this. And I'm going to go over to jobs. So I'm going to go in here to jobs. And this, for those that aren't aware, every rule that gets run gets logged within the jobs or within the EPBCS model. So it allows me to go identify if there was an error. I can go to see what that error is and be able to see, why that errored out within my log for that particular job. So this is the rule that was just run. You'll see here that I have my Groovy enhance rule here and my what if. I'm going to click here on my Groovy enhance. This is the actual Groovy rule that I ran, and I'm going to click on completed. And if you remember to my original business rule, there was that print line of my calc script. This is what it does. It literally passes the actual script that was run directly into the log. So you'll see here that it passed in US market. It went in and ran the calculation for GC1, GC1 XL, and SmartView 5-inch and ran the calculation. It only ran it on those 3 products for that particular market. So it identified the changes within the form, passed it into the business rule, ran the business rule, and then pushed it to our financial statement queue. Okay. So just wanted to give you a quick idea that, this is not vaporware. This is where we actually ran this and configured this just for this demo. So with that said, for those that have any questions, feel free to shoot through the Q&A, any questions you may have in regards to Groovy. It's not difficult, so try not to be overwhelmed by the fact that it's a different coding language. It's out of the box solution that has lots and lots of examples that are on the World Wide Web that are available to you.
Hey, Gerry, there's a couple of questions on the QA. One is, can we use Groovy within SmartView? From Trey Daniel.
That's a great question. So you have the ability to use Groovy to capture the changes within a form. You have to use the SmartView form. Okay, so as long as you're using a SmartView form, you can do that. If you're looking to say ad hoc, it's not supported in ad hoc. So if someone goes through and creates a quick ad hoc form and then an ad hoc spreadsheet and then tries to launch a Groovy rule, won't capture changes there. It has to be a SmartView form or a web form.
And then another question is, if you have an app that has a 1-hour calc time on a save, is that a design issue? Is it a requirements issue? Is it something we see typically?
And normally it's a design issue. So if it's on save, then obviously you're calculating it. I don't know the model, so I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek in a way, because there are a lot of things that could be occurring within that business rule, or you could be launching a number of business rules. But with that said, if you're not leveraging Groovy, most probably you'll be able to take advantage of some of the Groovy functionality and help improve that performance dramatically. Now, it may be a combination of using a Groovy rule and a reporting plan type as well, but you should be able to get some major improvements in performance.
Okay. And then from the S-Base guru at Gap, Mr. Cooper, he says that basically Groovy lets you build custom calc scripts on the fly. George, was there another question? We're confirming yes, your question. All right.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
one more, Gerry just came in. So yeah, George did confirm that was a question. Yes, George, yeah, you can create calc scripts on the fly, similar to what you've been doing for many years with the on-prem stuff and now OAC. Another question, how tricked out could Groovy be? What are some other possibilities that could really make a big impact that are wow features? And the person thanks for the clear examples. So what's another wow feature that we put in or that someone could do?
well, actually, that's a great question. As part of a follow-up to this particular presentation, we have 3 additional tips and examples we can send out, you can just use the info@prometheananalytics.com, and then, because we won't spam you guys. So for those that want that, just send an email to that. We'll collect that and we'll send that as a group. But a lot of great, cool things that you can actually do with that is we have a lot of models that have very detailed hierarchies in one plan type and an aggregate in another plan type. So let's say that I have a product category in my financial statements framework, but I have within that product category, I could have thousands of SKUs within my revenue model. Within Groovy, it allows us to actually go through and traverse the hierarchy, understand the parent, and be able to generate a list of all the children within that parent. Or I can go through and one simple one is fantastic, capturing the username. So I can actually capture a username within Groovy, pass it into the business rule, and actually know who launched that business rule and when, directly through the log. So if for any reason we see a particular rule that got launched within a log, you can actually see who launched that directly within the log.
Yeah, and if you have
in addition,
planners, right, and someone's having an issue.
Exactly.
And the old way, you couldn't tell who it was, or not easily, and logging the username would definitely help with that one.
We've actually trapped a bunch of attributes. We've gone through and leveraged Groovy for smart list, so we can actually go through based upon the change that a person makes within a particular combination on a smart list. It automatically goes through and pushes to the different member based upon the smart list that they've changed to. So I mean, you can do an amazing amount of things within Groovy, and we have a number of examples that we can send out to you. But I recommend, it's not just us, in regards to our examples, there are some great content out there. And I recommend that you check out some of that content. As part of the examples that we send out, we will also include references to those, URL references to those blogs.
There's another comment from Kyle Goodfriend, who is a really well-known person in the space. He said you can incorporate relational type functionality. Can really extend the tool quite a bit from there. And
Kyle's was one of the URL blogs I was going to reference you to. So he's amazing when it comes to his content. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Edward and our whole team, Tracy. Thanks for letting us present. All the best to everyone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Gerry. Thank you, Bill. Round of applause. Figured out a way to give you a round of applause. We're going to take about a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back with Tony Scalisi from OneCloud, who's going to talk about how data is king and how you can be a more productive liege with